南无本师释迦牟尼佛，南无本师释迦牟尼佛，南无本师释迦牟尼佛。We pay homage to our respected teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. Good. So, happy Chinese New Year. It's the 8th day of Chinese New Year. So this question actually came, well, it's really not a question, but since tonight is a chit-chat, so you can say that this is a chit-chat topic. So on this Blue Monday, it marks as the perceived most depressing day of the year. I don't know where that comes from. Is that from the Western calendar? Really? Strange. Very depressing. Why do people have to make it the most depressing day of the year? Why?
Psychologists and psychiatrists have done studies, and I don't know, they say that Monday in January is the most reportings of depressive episodes. There are people who track that kind of thing, I guess.
Then you know, unknowingly. I mean, we look at the message, and we can have a discussion. We go on and have a discussion. It's a sort of kind of depressing too, Why? Because this is an idea. Monday, January, so and so. Well, what day is that? Monday, January 1st? It can be the January 1st, right? No, okay. So you forgot?
I've already forgotten which Monday.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Oh, great. But back in the mind, you may not have forgotten. So this is actually already an idea that put into human minds. And that actually will have an imprint in our mind. And that would affect us in a way, unknowingly. It clearly is. So, good that we don't know, good that I don't know. I really don't agree with these kind of things. Because modern science, I think, modern science wanted to prove things. But a lot of things that they really cannot prove. But yet they already give a delusion, an illusion, or misleading thought to human beings. And that makes it more depressing, I think. Right? Sorry, psychologists, if there are any, if we have any here today. It occurs to me that perhaps we could touch on the topic of pandemic fatigue and how it is now seeming to turn into a pandemic burnout for so many. I want to see some hand tonight here about this topic, pandemic fatigue and pandemic burnout. So, how many of you actually have experienced or is experiencing pandemic fatigue or even pandemic burnout? Put your hand up. Oh, can I see some of the hands? Yeah, on the screen. How many? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and 4 and 5 here. Okay, not including me. My hand. I'm not putting on my hand. I actually quite enjoy it. Yeah, thank you. I actually quite like it. It's a downtime for me. Did you ask yourself why you have this? You feel this fatigue. Why do you feel this burnout? Why? What's going on? So what's going on?
Reacting to negativity and things that are around in the world.
You reacting. to the negativity that you are presented with. Okay, and why do you think that there is this reaction?
Because I see suffering and I feel the suffering and I see so many people suffering.
Okay, you see the sufferings of people and you see so many people are suffering, so you reacted. You become tired yourself. Yeah. And do you think if there is no pandemic and then there won't be any suffering?
Not at all.
Okay, so then you should be feeling that fatigue all the time, even whether it's in pandemic or not in pandemic, right?
Well, I don't know, I feel it more.
You feel it more because why?
Well, it just seems like it's in my face all the time.
Is this them in your what?
It's just right here all the time.
Right there all the time. You're forced to look at it.
Well,
not forced to look at it.
I'm choosing to see it.
Oh, you're choosing to see it.
Well, I mean, I'm not hiding. Is it the two of them?
Yeah.
I'm not hiding in a hole.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
you know,
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. So yeah. So you sort of feel that fatigue and you feel that burnout. Yes. When something is actually being put into our right at our face all the time, and we sort of have no way to actually dissolve it, to deal with it, and sooner or later we will experience that burnout. We will, and actually it's a very I think it's very natural if you are not enjoying this pandemic, then it's very natural that you will feel that fatigue and burnout. I'm not saying that we should enjoy the pandemic. It's not something that we can enjoy or we should enjoy, but it's not something that we should actually reject and push out. There's nothing we can do. Really, it's out of our own control, right? But the fatigue and the burnout, we can choose to actually have a control over it, I think. The other day, as soon as I got up, I sort of feel really like this. Not depressed nor whatever, but it's just it didn't feel right. So throughout the morning, I constantly tell myself, yeah, you better watch out. You watch out. You watch out. Don't slash out at anybody. Don't slash out at yourself. You watch out. You watch out. You watch out. I did slash out a little bit, but not as much. But that really, I know, it probably comes from some fatigue also, some burnout. I don't know, but yeah, it just happened. So it really, I think we could deal with that fatigue. We don't have to experience that burnout. We don't have to. But sometimes we are not aware enough, then we constantly like being overwhelmed by this fatigue then, and sometimes we say, oh gosh, I'll give up. And that you will experience that burnout very easily. Okay, so can we roll on? Next. Yesterday I listened to a call-in talk show on the radio about pandemic burnout at work, and I was so struck by how, regardless of the job, callers from all over the province, from doctors to truck drivers to store clerks to volunteers, all express consistently similar symptoms. And people are feeling significantly high levels of stress and exhausted. Truck drivers to store clerks all express consistently similar symptoms, like burnout and fatigue. And people are feeling significantly high levels of stress, are exhausted and overwhelmed, crying easily and are irritated, irrational, cranky, and quick to anger. They are emotionally and physically fatigued. I'm not quite sure about the physical, but I'm sure about the emotional. I want to ask you why you mentioned physical fatigue.
I mentioned it because a lot of the callers were healthcare workers, people who were working lots and lots of overtime.
Yeah, the healthcare workers. Yeah. It's true. Healthcare people. Yeah. That now I understand what you mean. Yeah. And the truckers too, possibly. Yeah. So yeah. Thank you. So people are feeling high level of stress, and yeah, I think because plugging in this just now, it actually shocked the computer in a way, somehow. So yeah, this high level of stress exhausts emotionally and physically fatigued. Those crying, irritated, irrational, cranky, and quick to anger actually are the signs of emotion fatigue. So, have you experienced that? Have any of you experienced that? Have any of you cried? You have? You have?
All the time.
All the time crying?
Yeah. Without reason.
Oh, wow. And anybody on Zoom actually have cried? Or like cranky and quick to anger during this pandemic? You have? Wow, we have 3 people here tonight putting their hands up. Cried, cranky. Well, it's actually very normal that you would cry, you get cranky, you get irritated, you get irrational and quick to anger because you're not used to this pandemic. You're not used to this situation. The situation that people are familiar with is not here, right? We are not familiar with all the restrictions in the pandemic, but yet we are being forced to abide by those restrictions. And we are not used to have to go through all those protocols, keep wearing masks and keep washing our hands and keep being worried if I start to have a scratchy throat, and we are not used to that. And remember what the Buddha actually taught is one of the strong sufferings is because we are not used to changes. We don't want changes. We don't like changes. And so when we don't want it and we don't like it and it's there and it's constantly right in front of you and right at your face, that's where it creates emotional turmoil. And if we are not aware, if we are not equanimous, balanced enough, then it's very difficult to overcome those emotions, right? So how do you overcome your crying? You don't overcome it at all? You just let it cry? Huh?
It just passes.
It just passes?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's there and then it goes. Yeah.
How long? For how long?
2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah. A couple minutes.
Couple of minutes?
Yeah.
Huh. Couple of minutes, okay. And it just passes. And how often does it happen? Every day? Oh no, that's good. Twice a week? Not even that. So that's not bad. It's not bad. You're quite resilient already. Yeah. Some people cry almost every day. You're not bad. So it's okay. You're still emotionally sound. When you're driving on the road and if you see some reckless driver, do you get angry?
Not anymore.
Not anymore. So you're really not too bad either. I did get angry a couple of times, and I think yesterday was one of it. Not really angry, but irritated. You know where my condo is 7:30 in the morning, right? 8:30. No, this morning it was like this morning, 8:40, 9 o'clock. Nobody is supposed to take a left turn from that corner like Simpsons and Simpsons, right? Because the traffic is so heavy, and this guy was sitting there having the blinker on the left, blinking, turning left, and I look at the sign. Oh, no left turn between 8 o'clock to 6 p.m. I said, no left turn, no left turn. He couldn't be bothered, and he was waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. I mean, I was waiting, and so I flicked my light. He couldn't care less. So I think probably another minute or so, and he took a left turn because there was no car. But at that time, I was thinking to myself, geez, I got irritated by this guy, taking a left turn. So I think it could be, I mean, I am easily irritated by reckless driver. Not in the pandemic, but I noticed that in pandemic, this is post-pandemic already. This is really not a pandemic anymore. Even during the period of pandemic or after post-pandemic, I noticed that people are driving more reckless than before. On the highway, especially on the highway. After the flood, remember? Even the what do you call that? The meter, that thing, the speed, whatever. Variable speed sign is 60 kilometers or 80. Nobody went 60. Everybody went over 100 because of this irritation inside, the impatience inside. So it is all really I could say is all the effect of this pandemic. And some are withdrawing from their normal social interactions and are losing interest in things that once brought them pleasure and joy. And many people have flipped from months and months of hypervigilance and fear to apathy and depression. And this is all because of fatigue and burnout. And you say that some people are really withdrawing from their normal social interactions. They have to because of the restrictions, right? But even after the restrictions, they don't want to go out. That is not a withdrawal. Not necessarily a withdrawal, because like me, I enjoy, not have to interact too much. I do enjoy it. And I think sometimes it's because you are actually perceiving this is a withdrawal because you are withdrawing too, maybe.
That comment came from people on the radio saying, I used to participate in, Zoom activities, and now I can't do that anymore, and I'm not going outside for walks with my friends, where in a safe environment.
Oh, I see.
They were withdrawing.
They're withdrawing. Those are the comments.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, I wonder why, huh? Because of the fatigue.
Yeah, just feeling like they
So
need to withdraw.
so they flip to the other side.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Losing interest, and I think this is all a reactive behavior towards the fatigue and the burnout. And I can't have this. I'm not going to do this. Right? That's a reactive behavior, right? It's certainly, and then they flip from months of hypervigilance and fear to apathy and depression. And so it's actually flipping between different emotions, constantly flipping between different emotions. But we just give them all these names of emotions, like this is called depression, this is called apathy, this is apathy, or this is called hypervigilance, this is called fear. It's just different labels of emotions, and generally speaking, it's just a whole general term of emotion. It's called emotions. So then we go on, and many are feeling very isolated and lonely, and many others are having huge relationship conflicts. This is actually very, very normal reactive behavior, because as we all know that human beings are pack animals, and we are so used to interact with people, to be among people, and when we are not giving that kind of opportunity, that reactive behavior will just act up. And if you are not aware, if you do not have that mindfulness, we just follow that reactive behavior. We just keep being tricked by the mind, and then we go into that mode, whatever the mind wants us to go into. And so then you will start to have problem getting along with people, even the closest one, right? Because you start to react the way that you are not used to, and people are not used to that. You also, right? And you don't. And then maybe before the pandemic, you will sit down and then have a talk with it, have a talk about it. But then you say, "The hell with it! I'm not going to talk about this, and I don't want to talk about this." You like it, you like it. You don't like it, you don't like it, right? So people are really going to the other end of the spectrum, rather than, keep constantly bringing back to one's awareness and trying to work over it and talk about it and be open about it and embrace it. They just forget it. I'm not going to do anything. So I can see from all these helplessness, hopelessness, these are all really reactive behavior. And let us finish reading this passage first. Most are sleeping poorly or sleeping too much and are struggling daily to stay focused and concentrate. Drinking, drugging, overeating, and indulging in unhealthy habits, far more like excessive screen time, for example. Yeah, because that is compensation. To compensate, to actually compensate or to mask the other emotions, right? To get rid of the emotions. Oh, I eat. It's nice to sit there and watch TV and eat, rather than have to think about, loneliness and hopelessness and restrictions and all that. So yeah, drinking and drugging. This is why a spiritual practice is so important. Having a spiritual practice at a time like this is very, very important, very crucial. And really, we cannot do any good without this spiritual practice. If we do not have a practice, spiritual practice, or even religious practice, it's not going to help. But having a spiritual practice, of course, is way, way much better. And sometimes even having a religious practice is not sufficient. Why would it happen here? Even though somebody could be a very devoted, whatever you want to call it, Christian, Buddhist, whatever, but if they do not actually put it into their daily life, and it's just a belief system, it's just a faith system, it's not going to help much. Why would you think that, oh, if you are a Christian, why would God bring such thing to earth? Why would God, bring pandemics, and then so we are all locked down and we are all locked in and blah, 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 blah? Why? Or why would the Buddha allow this to happen? What happens? Right? So just having this religious faith is not sufficient. You need a deeper practice, a spiritual practice, so that you understand why this happens and how you're going to deal with it. Okay? So they appear to be soldiering on, but are self-soothing and self-medicating. So these are all reactions. So, of course, so too was a uniqueness in each person's pain and reason for it. Of course, because we are all individual and we all have our own set of values, we all have our own set of standards, we all have our own type of mind and set of mental reactions. So it is definitely will be different, between each person. But there are similarities too. There are a lot of similarities too. So as a meditator with access to the Dhamma, I have precious tools at my disposal to help deal with the understanding, to help deal with and understand all of this seemingly relentless mental, emotional, and physical exhaustion. Yes. But even so, as we are near the 2-year mark in this pandemic, and as a lay person with a long way to go on the path, I recognize myself in some of this long laundry list of symptoms. I don't blame you. I don't blame you, because we are still human beings. And we are not enlightened, we are not saints and sages. So we will have reactions, we will have reactive behavior. And then it's really very natural, and it's not necessary to blame yourself and thinking that you have failed or getting frustrated that you actually present some of these symptoms. Okay, so but also perhaps more importantly, I can clearly see it in the ones I love and care for. That aspect, for some reason, has suddenly really opened my eyes and made me see this huge opening for compassion and forgiveness. It's true, because people close to you may really present a very, very different picture than the one that you want to see. And at that time, you will be hurt more than anything, because they are close to you. They are very close to you. They are your brothers, they are your sisters, they are your, could be your hubby, could be your wife, could be your best friends, and you think that they are not logical. How can I talk sense into their head and then, convince them to do this and convince them not to do that? You will be hurt because you think that they should be doing that because that is the best for them to do. But it's you think. But it's not they think. Okay? So I think you probably heard my one of the jokes I used to talk about. Maybe you haven't heard it before, but I'm going to tell you tonight. So a kid go to school in San Francisco. A little kid go to school in primary school, like grade 6 or grade 5, can't remember, or even junior high. And before he left home, and the mother said, "Oh, put on your jacket, put on your long slacks, and put on your long sleeve shirt, and put on a jacket, put on a toque, put on a scarf." So he put all these on. So by the time he got to school, all the kids were wearing shorts, no toque, no scarf, no jacket. And all these buddies said to him, "Hey, so and so, for example, his name is Joey, okay? Hey, Joey, are you sick?" He said, "No." "But why are you wearing all long sleeves and long slacks and toque and jacket?" He said, "Oh, because my mom is cold." Because my mother is cold, so she made me wear all those stuff. I'm not cold, but my mom is cold. So the kid is very compassionate. The kid loves the mom. So he follows the mom's order, but he doesn't need all those. So you know what I mean, Laurie? Now you see it? So it's your problem. Okay? So don't make, I know you don't have any kids, but don't make anybody that you love to wear the long slacks and toque and scarf and everything, okay? If they want to wear it, they will wear it. If they feel cold, they will put it on, right? So you probably haven't heard this story before, right? Okay. Now you heard it, okay? I'm not going to tell you again in the future. So please remember this kid's story. I think is actually very inspiring and actually very humorous too. And it's actually very awakening. I think it's very enlightening. If all the mothers would hear it and really, really do it, and I think there will be very little conflict at home. You know, it's always this, "I want you to do this," and this little guy said, "I don't want to do that," and the parents keep saying, "I want you to do this. This is the right thing to do." Oh yeah, it's right according to you, but it's not according to them. Okay? So for myself, for others, for strangers, to not take things so personally when I'm faced with the frail, irrational, and runaway behaviors, emotions, and irritations of others. Just seeing this more clearly has lessened the weight I was carrying on my shoulders. Good for you. Very good. That's true. That's just like this mother and the child, right? So when you see that you have that kind of behavior, actually, that's the time for you to change and for you to correct yourself. And you should be thankful for your beloved ones to allow you to see yourself through that behavior. That's why I always say others are mirrors for us, for ourselves. Okay? So when we look at this pandemic, fatigue and burnout, or just pandemic, we actually, as a practitioner in the Buddha's tradition, following the Buddha's path, we should see this really, it is presentation of karma, isn't it? It's a presentation of karma right in front of our eyes. And this karma is, you don't have to go too far into the past lives. Even this lifetime, we can see what kind of karma we as human beings have created for ourselves. Right? I mean, I look at fishing boats, huge fishing boats. Sad, really sad when I see those fishing boats. I never imagined the fishing boats could be so huge and the net is like as big as the ocean. And when they close the fishing net and drag it onto the boat, millions of fish being caught. And do we really need that many fish? We don't. And what kind of karma we have created for the ocean? Right? We think about that. We don't have to go into the past lives, think about karma always in the distant. No, it's right here. What have we done to create such environment? What have we done? And look at the flood that we had in November. Why would we have such flood? If we wouldn't have made this Fraser Valley as Fraser Valley 100 years ago, this flood wouldn't happen. Of course, we wouldn't be here, but this flood wouldn't happen. Think about that. Isn't it karma? But yet, of course, within this presentation of karma, there is this collective karma that we all face, the pandemic. We all face the pandemic. But yet, some of us face it with less severity, but some of us face it with more severity. Some of us faces the severity earlier, but some of us face the severity later. Like now, we are almost at the peak of the fifth wave, and hopefully it will sort of go down a little bit. And we are so used of this lockdown and whatnot. But recently in Hong Kong, they are just facing this challenge of lockdown. Dosansi just told me before the Dharma sharing, where she lives, they have to have like complete, what do you call CR test? What's that called? PCR test. Actually, I think almost everywhere in Hong Kong, they're going to have PCR tests for 8 million people. And they closed down a certain district. Nobody is allowed to go out. Nobody allows to go in. And they did not have that kind of situation before. They never experienced, they experienced a little bit of lockdown, but never experienced the kind of lockdown that we experienced in 2020, right? But now they're experiencing it now in Hong Kong. So, but yet, look at the karmic point of view. Yet we are here. We live in spacious house or even spacious condo. But yet in Hong Kong, they live in tiny condos with like a whole family of 5 or 6 in the less, like half of this size. Can you imagine? They have lockdowns. Can you imagine what kind of emotions they have to go through? So that is the collective karma in Hong Kong and collective karma with us. But also within individual, there are karmas, individual karmas. So this whole thing is if we want to overcome those emotions, we definitely need to look at it from that karmic point of view. Otherwise, it's no way that we are going to convince ourselves to accept this situation. How are you going to convince yourself to accept this situation if it's not karma? Is there any way? No? Yes?
I was just going to say, if you were perhaps a Christian, you might think it was God's will or
But
God's
why
plan.
would God create
I
such
don't know.
thing? Yeah.
I'm just throwing that out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. That's why I said, why, I asked, why would God create such situation for us to experience? What is His intention? What does He want us to learn? Then, being a Christian, they should go into that kind of thinking process. Why would God create such situation for us? What does He want us to learn? What kind of lesson is He giving us? Even a Christian could go to that kind of spirituality and come out feeling free and liberated. Okay? Right? You have doubts about karma in pandemic?
No.
Okay.
No doubts. I just, I looked at it differently, I guess, when I saw this question.
You look at it differently. This is not a question, really not a question. It's sort of like a whatever. Commentary.
Yeah, that's why it's interesting, actually, Sifu, to hear you talk about karma, because when Lori first brought this up and I looked at that long list of things, I was like, oh, check. And I thought, oh, and it was a real wake-up call to me, not because I wanted to find a reason or like, why is this happening? But because it just made me look at it and go, oh, well then, what should I do? And then so I thought of, I guess different suttas came to mind, like, I don't know what sutta it was, but you were, Sifu, you talked about like writing anger on a stone or in sand or in water. And I thought, well, I better change my writing medium and start using water at least instead of stone.
Right.
So I guess that's how I started looking at it, is like, okay, I'm not going to look at why this is happening, but I can at least address the effects that I see.
Of course, that's a good way to look at it. Yeah, because a lot of people are asking why this is happening, right? Why? Why do we have this pandemic? And then when you ask why, you have to think about it from that karmic point of view. And karma is really not something not really like abstract. Karma is just cause and effect, that's all. Right? Cause and effect. Our actions causes effects, that's all. So if you keep on fishing like this, the ocean is going to be empty. Right? If you keep on logging like this, the forest is going to be empty. And with an empty forest, when there's a fire, it's going to burn. When it burns, it kills many animals or it destroys many houses. So it's a chain reaction. So when we say karma, when we look at the word karma, we don't fall into being very superstitious. It's like something destined to be. No, it's actually our own actions causes the effects. And so the Buddha has, in the sutta, the Buddha has asked a king, what do you do when the mountains come close together? What do you do? And the mountains come close together is what? It's those life experiences that we go through, old age, sickness, and also difficulties like this kind of thing, pandemic, right? So how are we going to overcome all these emotions, all these checklists, this whole list of checklists? How are we going to overcome this? You all have the answer. Otherwise, you won't be here, right? So we need to really keep a strong, resilient practice. And of course, I would say we cannot sort of just let ourselves go, because once you let it go, it just goes. If you let yourself like going into like keep looking at the phone, or keep drinking, or keep eating, then you just go, and it is very difficult to stop. Very difficult. Yeah. So we do really need a very, very, very clear mind. And and how do we actually achieve to have that clear mind? And we all know by this to achieve this clear mind, we need to actually being mindful, very mindful. And I think this pandemic is actually a very, very powerful teacher. A very, very powerful teacher, or teaching to us about our lives, about death, about sickness, about, very important is about changes. And then help us to develop this awareness, this compassion, and resilience and patience. I think this pandemic is a great teaching. It's a great teaching if one can use it as a teaching. But if one doesn't use it as a teaching, then one will see it as a very negative thing. But we have to actually turn it, to look at it from a very different point of view. And I feel that this pandemic actually calls upon us. Actually, it's a wake-up call to all of us, especially us walking on this path of Dhamma, is, hey, you need to strengthen your spirituality. You need to strengthen your practice. You need to strengthen your faith. And you need to deepen your knowledge in the Buddha's teachings. Otherwise, when situation arises, how are you going to anchor yourself if you don't have that deep knowledge of the teachings? Where are you going to anchor? Where are you going to throw your anchor into? You may hit a big piece of rock and break your anchor if you don't know the map of the ocean, right? So you need to have that GPS right there in your head. So this pandemic actually tells us, I think it teaches us that all of us are equal. None of us can escape this pandemic. None of us. Anywhere in the world, we could be equally affected by this pandemic. But yet, because of the individual karma, we may be differently affected. But we are definitely on an equal basis facing this pandemic. Right? So talking about equality, the pandemic. Yeah? So just like a death, we are all equal in the aspect, looking at the aspect of death. Looking at the aspect of life, of birth, we're all equal. But in between sickness and old age, we are not equal. Why? Because we have different karma. Right? It's individual differences in karma. So we need to actually really arouse, being more awakened to see this right in front of us all the time, and remind ourselves constantly, and catch our own reactive behavior faster and faster, and then calm them as much as possible. All right. So there are a few tools that I want to actually share with you that how can we actually really deal with it. So we acknowledge that we are fearful. We are afraid of this pandemic. We are afraid of, catching this virus or whatever. But we need to actually look at that fear. And those of you who have actually sat with me in the 16 steps, remember when I talk about the mental sankhara. Remember? And what I tell people is, the chitta sankhara. What I tell you is just look at it. Just look at it. Just look at it. And when you start to look at it, for example, the chitta sankhara is fear. Okay? So it's fear. Then you just look at it. You look at it, and you just look at it. And you will start to see the changes in that fear. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, sometimes like this, sometimes without this, and sometimes with that. And you look at it, and if you could actually maintain yourself in a non-reactive way, but just observing way, and you can see that fear will start to go down, sink to the floor, sink to the ground and disappear. But very soon, another fear would just arise. That's okay. I said, patience, resilience. You just keep looking at it, So, acknowledging is just like observing and embracing it. And it's actually, it's very, very important to acknowledge that. Why we react, why we overeat, why we overdrink, why we overdrug, because we want to avoid facing. We don't want to acknowledge that we have such emotions. That's a problem. That's a problem. And that's a huge problem. And that's why, at difficult times like this, drugs, alcohol, food really become too prosperous, overpowering people. Yeah, because people don't want to face them. So first step is acknowledge. And then the second step is we need to practice mindfulness and meditation. So with this we become aware of our body, we become aware of our mind, and most important, this mindfulness and meditation is aware of the mental part is the most important. And of course, sometimes when you're not aware of the mental part, and then you're aware of the physical part, ooh, I have put on so much weight. What happens? Oh, because of overeating. Oh, I'm drunk half of the time. What happens? Oh, because I'm over drinking. So the physical body tells you about your own mind, how you're behaving or how you are actually reacting to whatever that you're experiencing right now. Then it gives you a chance and opportunity to see yourself and how you can improve yourself, how you can change and correct yourself. And that's where mindfulness comes into play. And if mindfulness is only happening when you're sitting, I tell you, it's useless mindfulness. It has to be integrated into your life. And that's what the Buddha always taught. Mindfulness is just not on the meditation cushion. It's in your daily life. Okay? So we have, developed that and strengthened that. And cultivating compassion, of course, as I said just now, you need to develop that compassion, not for others, but for yourself to start off. I have fear. If I don't acknowledge the fear stays in there. If you start to say, I love myself and I want myself to be happy, I want myself to be liberating, then deal with the fear. Then the fear won't tie you down. The fear won't entangle you. Okay? So when you feel that you're angry, or when you feel that you are sad, or when you feel that you are depressed, then practice metta for yourself. May I be happy. May I be able to overcome this fear. So compassion for yourself, and then you will start to, share that compassion with others. Okay, so you all know about how to practice metta, right? So practice more metta, and remember, metta is not just happening on the cushion. Also, it can happen anywhere, anytime. Okay, and understanding our interconnectedness, or understanding our interconnection, we are all dependent on each other. Even though during the pandemic, even though we are in lockdown, we still have to depend on others. Right? We need to depend on the truckers. We need to depend on the people who clean out the garbage, who empty the garbage bin for us, right? We need people to look after the power. If power goes off, they need to fix the power. So we understand that. We know that our survival depends on others. And others' survival also depends on us. For example, if your mother, if you don't look after your mother during the pandemic, what happens, right? So that we are interconnected. None of us could be totally independent. None of us. So when we understand that interconnection between all of us, we will start to respect and cherish the existence of others. And we want to protect them. Okay? So when I talk about this, it's like think of the vaccines. Some people are so anti-vaccines. I could understand that their fear. Maybe they have fear, or maybe they whatever. But think about that. Our interconnection. If I have taken vaccine, if I am an elderly immunosuppressed person, and if I cannot take the vaccine, and you are younger, and you don't take the vaccine, and you carry that virus, and you could easily pass on to me, because we may come into contact with each other. Not necessarily intentionally, but unintentionally. What happens then? So knowing that we are interconnected somehow, some way, we start to respect this situation with another set of or mental states, mindset, with another mindset, and we start to respect others more. And of course, I mean, I won't push people to take vaccines or not take vaccines, but I think we need to really understand this, we are all connected somehow, somewhere, some way. Nobody is totally independent. And then I think last but not least is really we can make use of the time wisely during this pandemic, right? Develop a hobby, do some knittings, read more books, meditate more, do more exercise, and use the time wisely and to prepare for yourself. Oh, after the pandemic, I could be a strong horse again, and do also, all the work. Not like a tired horse and no energy. And when after the pandemic, and you're so tired, and then you no energy, how are you going to enjoy the post-pandemic time? Right? So use the time wisely, and because why also is we do not know how much time do we still have. We wouldn't know. And that impermanence is constantly lurking around us. And anytime they knock on our door, we wouldn't know without knowing. So we need to constantly remind ourselves and using these opportunities for our practice, and motivate ourselves to change our so-called normal behavior, which is really not normal. I mean the reactive behavior, the sankhara, and use the time wisely to change that, and also to see how we can actually behave in a more wholesome way to benefit others and benefit the world. I think the most important thing is, all these will really strengthen your spirituality and strengthen your spiritual practice. And this is what we really need at a time like this. And I think isolation at home is actually a very good opportunity to reflect upon yourself, to see how disciplined you are. How disciplined you are, and how you can make use of that time. And these are my 2 cents for the night. So, anybody has any inspiration, anything to say? Cock.
This past 2 years, working in a hospital setting.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah.
It kind of opened up a lot of things for me.
Yeah.
Work-wise, but also just the idea of, because there's so much resistance
in the hospital.
Yeah, and different people, different group of people.
Yeah.
I keep thinking to myself, what happened to common good?
Yes.
Like, what happened?
Yes.
It just seems like that's lost on a lot of people's mind.
Yeah.
Like, just when it just comes to just vaccination.
Yeah.
Just in terms of just common good.
Yeah.
But it seems like everybody's thinking me.
Me,
what
me,
happened
me.
to
Yeah.
me?
Yeah.
My.
Because they forget that interconnection.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
That keeps. Whenever there's problems out with this lockdown thing, and people don't believe in this, don't believe in that.
Yeah.
I just come down to what happened to common good nowadays.
Yeah.
Just
we lost it.
Yeah.
We're really not lost it, but being masked by this selfishness. Yeah. This big self overcomes and masks everything. Masks all the good, wonderful qualities of humanity. Because we all have that wonderful qualities of compassion and wisdom. We are equal in that too. But the selfishness, the greed, whatever you want to call it, just cover it up completely, mask them.
And I think I see a lot of fear.
Definitely
I think
fear.
there's just
Yeah,
a lot of fear that comes
definitely.
out in
Yeah.
a negative way for a lot of people.
Yeah,
And overall, there's lots of anxiety, just I guess
yeah,
the effect of it,
yeah,
just making people more anxious.
yeah.
So
It's a chain reaction.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Fear is actually a very big enemy, a very strong enemy. When we don't acknowledge that fear, it keeps coming back and stronger. And then a whole lot of reactions, emotions will just follow. Yeah, yeah. Anybody else? Anybody have any inspiring thoughts on this? Laurie's put out that long commentary. Nobody? All right. Nobody? Persia, you have anything to say? No? Nothing. Okay. Nobody? Okay. So, for those people who are in Hong Kong right now, I hope that you will be very mindful and don't forget about the interconnectedness between people and you and your families, and I know it's difficult, especially in such a very small area. It's very difficult, very challenging, but human mind is very powerful. If we can put that power and strength differently, we can create a lot of wonderful golden opportunities for us to improve. But if we put that strength and power in the opposite end, we could create a lot of difficulties and emotions for ourselves also. Okay? So take good care of yourself, and especially take good care of the mind. It's very, very important to take good care of the mind. All right? All right then. So let us dedicate our merits. May these blessings extend to all, that we with all the other living beings together will attain the Buddha way. May we wish more and more people will encounter the wise words of the Buddha, study them, understand them, and practice them, and help themselves to liberate from their own entanglements, difficulties, sufferings, miseries, and be truly and ultimately free and happy and peaceful.